This is our Colorado lounge.
Oh, it's beautiful. My God. This place is fantastic, isn't it, hon?
Hey, hello, and welcome to my channel. As you can see from the title today, we are talking about The Shining, and in particular, we're looking at all of the elevators in the film. And no, I'm not just talking about the famous elevator scene with the river of blood coming out of it. I believe there are several odd details I've noticed about some of the other elevator scenes too, and so perhaps we really need to take a look at all of the elevators in The Shining and find out what's really going on. So let's start our video. The first elevator we actually see, albeit from the side, is when Jack is going into his interview with Mr. Ullman. You can see a staff member, or bellboy, I think they were called back then, carrying the bags of a man apparently checking in. And strangely, here in this shot, you can see the man is holding a couple of very long objects. Are these rifles? Because the hat he's holding looks like a hunting hat. It could be skis, but it's not totally clear. And immediately after this, we see Jack walk into Mr. Ullman's office, very prominently framed by this amazing painting called The Great Mother by Indigenous artist Norval Morrisseau. The next elevator we see involves Danny actually having his first Shining episode in the film before he even gets to the Overlook Hotel. Whilst looking in the mirror and talking to his imaginary friend Tony, Danny has a terrifying vision of an old-fashioned elevator which starts to gush blood out of one side of it, at one point seeing two eerie twins wearing matching blue dresses who I feel may have reached out to Danny to try and warn him about the hotel. Then he sees the furniture actually moving. Is it floating on the river of blood? Because it doesn't really seem that deep, maybe an inch or two. I've always felt the furniture moving in the oddly animated way it does is proof of a ghostly presence. Well, right here you can see as the blood is coming out from the side, it does look like there is something in the blood. Again, I don't think we can be 100% sure what it is. Now, of course, this is the most famous elevator scene with the river of blood coming out of it. And I'm well aware that there appears to be something in the river of blood, and I know other channels have said that they think it's a body sort of flopping out of the elevator during that scene. But it looks a bit unformed to me. Yes, it hints at being a body, but we can't be 100% sure. Perhaps it's almost a totem of some kind that's representing a person or group of people, but it's just a bit hazy. We aren't quite sure. But if, like Mr. Ullman said, this place is built on top of an old Indian burial ground, then that might be a better explanation as to why there's a literal river of blood running through this place. Because I believe The Shining does have a theme about Native people in it. Then, on the day the Torrance family moves in, we see them actually step out of the elevator, which is odd since I think they were already on the ground floor, so I'm not sure where they all seemed to be coming from. Then Mr. Ullman shows them the Colorado Lounge, and it's here that Wendy asks if all the designs are authentic. Mr. Ullman says it's mostly Navajo and Apache motifs. Immediately after this, we find Danny playing darts by himself, and he has his first face to face ghost encounter at the hotel, again with our twins. When Mr. Halloran meets the family and takes Danny and Wendy on a tour of the kitchen, we get a really odd shot of what seems like a staff elevator or freight elevator. Since it obviously leads to the kitchen, you might think supplies were brought in here. Now, this is a Kubrick film, so there's no way this detail is by accident. It's there for a reason. So let's take a look. There's a man in this elevator moving what appears to be the bags of guests into the elevator, I guess to go upstairs. But why would guest bags be down in the kitchen? Most of the guests have checked out by now, since the Torrance family have moved in to be caretakers in the off season. And is this guy a staff member? He's not dressed like a staff member. He seems to be wearing some sort of sports team jacket. And why is he moving like 20 bags by himself? I find this one of the strangest details in the film. There's definitely more than meets the eye here. I feel like in this scene of Wendy wheeling this cart with their breakfast on it, that she must have just come off of the elevator, since she would have cooked it in the basement kitchen, presumably, and the Torrance apartment is upstairs. You can see the exit sign on the side there, and probably there's an elevator in there. Of course, this is right next to the blue flowered hallway where the twins are found. Of course, we also get several shots of Danny riding past elevators as he's going around the hallways of the Overlook on his big wheel, presumably on the second floor, because this is where room 237 is. And this shot of Jack typing his book, quote unquote, you can see a good shot of some of the elevators literally right behind him as he's typing. Towards the end of the film, as Jack wanders over to the gold room again, we see the elevator featured rather prominently and decorated with balloons. Apparently, the ghosts of the Overlook are having a party. When Wendy is trying to escape a homicidal Jack, she has her own encounter with the River of Blood, looking totally horrified. The River of Blood was only seen before in Danny's Shining episodes, and now it seems Wendy is actually seeing it for real. Were Danny's Shining episodes a premonition of what was to come? And are the elevators of the Overlook just haunted spaces? Or is there something else going on? Well, I think we need to take a look at the concept of energy vortexes. What are they? Why they are special, with a few examples, and why that might relate to The Shining. Some people might think of energy vortexes as almost a metaphysical or even occult concept. Energy vortexes are basically real geographical places that are thought to have a heavy concentration of energy either entering into the earth or radiating out of it from that specific place. Often these are considered sacred sites. Some examples would be the pyramids of Egypt, Stonehenge in England, the Sedona, Arizona, beautiful desert landscapes, and Uluru in Australia, also known as Ayers Rock, which has been a sacred spiritual site for Indigenous Australian people for at least 30,000 years. That's a long time. They believe the spirits of their ancestors are still there. Perhaps the spirit-haunted Overlook Hotel is also the site of some type of spiritual portal or energy vortex. Since there are many ghosts here, and this elevator seems to be a center for some of the otherworldly activity. To start our sum up, well, we see elevators in The Shining featuring prominently in some very important scenes, including when the Torrance family first arrives and walks into the Colorado Lounge. Of course, when Danny has his first Shining episode, we see our elevator with the River of Blood. And that strange detail of Mr. Halloran and Danny and Wendy walking by that man with all those bags, too many bags for one person, in my opinion, on the freight elevator. And of course, when Wendy sees the River of Blood for herself at the end of the film. So, why is there a River of Blood in the elevator at the Overlook Hotel? And what's going on with the other elevators? Well, since the River of Blood is first seen in Danny's Shining episode, which I believe was a warning to him, I think part of what's going on there reinforces the theme of telepathy. Danny is being shown a river of blood by the twins as a warning. So this elevator is a center of psychic energy at the very least. A second piece to this is the idea of energy vortexes, often at sacred sites. And since this whole place is apparently built on top of an Indian burial ground, I believe the hotel, and specifically the elevators, are acting as spiritual antennas and receivers, allowing certain people to see and experience things related to the hotel's history. It is perhaps fitting there's a painting by an indigenous artist featured prominently in the hotel, because this place may once have been considered a sacred site by the native peoples. Now, as for some of the other strange elevator scenes, with Danny, I think because he has the shining ability is why he often has strange experiences in close proximity to an elevator, since they are active psychically. And the freight elevator guy, well, I think this guy is related to a completely different theme, the theme of the disappearing guests. But that's a video for another day. Well, that's my new video about the elevators of The Shining. Hope you liked it. I'm definitely working on something for next week, and I hope to have that up soon. And thanks so much for your great comments. I really appreciate the feedback. Also, it would help my channel if you did hit that subscribe button, but either way, my name is Shim. Thank you for spending time with me, and have a great day.
Mrs. Torrance, your husband introduced you as Winifred. Now, are you a Winnie or a Freddie?
I'm a Wendy.
Oh, Wendy, that's nice. That's the prettiest.